Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is John Rivas. John, welcome to the podcast.
What's going on, man? Glad to be here.
Not a whole lot. I'm definitely not in the boat you are, 7 days out from competing. So thank you so much, John, for taking a little time, man, to chop it up with us. Looking forward to kind of getting to know you. The first question I want to ask you, John, is who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Oh, man. Okay. So I like to sort of break it up into like style of training. Guys I look at for their style of training, guys I look at for their physiques, guys I look at for their sort of their mindset. I would say probably the mindset and overall and drive and determination, things like that. I would say Dorian, right? Dorian, we all go through a lot of things in life where I would say that, no one's a millionaire bodybuilder, especially as an amateur. So every one of us is doing other things to make money and survive. So to be able to focus and put a lot and turn the blinders on and be able to achieve things in bodybuilding, you have to have that intensity, that mindset where you sort of, unfortunately, you have to put a lot of things on the back burner in life. But it's worth it in the end, especially for us. We get enjoyment from it, and it's our passion. But I would say Dorian and mindset. Training wise, man, it'd probably be a mix between Ronnie and possibly like a Sean Ray. And the reason I say that is because I was a powerlifter for many years. I was a powerlifter for 9 or 10 years. Did it through college. I was a Collegiate All-American national champion. I was on Team USA. I actually medaled with Team USA in Poland. I think I still have. Yeah, here we go. So that's my Team USA stuff. And then so once I did that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go the non-tested route because that was all drug tested. So by 21, I was probably like 220 or 215 or something. I was benching close to 500 raw natural. I was squatting. We were doing single ply. So I was squatting 800 single ply. And then deadlifting over 7, all natural. And then so I went the enhanced route and I was able to become the strongest man of all time for the 242-pound class, which Dan Green was in. So I had the record, and then Larry Wheels took it from me about 3 months later. And after that, I was sort of like, oh man, I'm getting really beat up by like 25. So I decided to do bodybuilding. But that's where I relate to Ronnie in the heavy training. However, as I've progressed, I've gotten more towards training like, say a Sean Ray or a Vince Taylor, where it was a lot of contraction, a lot of controlling, a lot of movements that I changed that I was doing. I was so used to going A to B, A to B, A to B, just moving the weight. And now it's become more of a control throughout the movement, eccentric and concentric. And it's really developed my physique and completely changed my physique the last couple of years, going from, I was stronger. My central nervous system was stronger, and a lot of things were stronger the way I trained back then. Because you ain't going to catch me. I was repping 800-pound squats with just knee wraps on. And you ain't going to catch me doing that now. So, but yeah, so I think I relate to those two guys training wise. And I would say the final, like physique wise, like if I were to pick a bodybuilder that I like just for his physique, I would have to say it's going to be a tie, but it's probably going to go to Kevin Levrone. Right. It's probably going to go to Kevin. Just the way that, there are certain shots that he hit, his side chest is most muscular. Some of his back shots may not have been the strongest for him, but he had some shots that when you think of like hands class most muscular, Kevin Levrone, right? Side chest, Kevin Levrone. So, there's a lot of shots and those, I remember seeing those. I actually have original 1994, April 94 Flex magazine right here. Nice. So that's Kevin right there, right? So that's him hitting the most muscular, hands clasped. So that, that's what he's known for. So yeah, I love the sport. I love the history of all strength sports, weightlifting, bodybuilding. There's a lot of really good guys now, but being someone who came up with the magazines and stuff, like I tend to go more towards the old school guys.
Cool, man. Love that. Very thorough, man. That's very cool. Now, why don't you tell us, John? It sounds like you started lifting weights at a pretty young age, because you said you got into powerlifting pretty young. At what age did you actually start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age? Was it for powerlifting? Was it for sports, or what was the reasoning?
I would say I was pretty good at soccer growing up. I started playing soccer when I was 3.5. My mom signed a waiver so I could start playing like with the preschool kids at a younger age. I'm sure I was just walking around the field at that point, but got pretty good at soccer. And then, started track in middle school and stuff. And I was all states and hurdles, 110 high hurdles in high school. I did track and field, played football, soccer. So I was just, athletic. Like I was dunking by the time I was 18. So I always loved moving, right? I don't know if it was like probably ADD or something, but I just had to be on the move. And so anything physical was something I enjoyed. And I think what originally got me into weightlifting was the drive I have, and what most of us have, the intensity and the focus for bodybuilding, day in and day out, every meal you hit, every day, every week, every month, every year. I had that for other sports too. But when you bump into a coach who may play favorites or may not put you in, I remember my senior year, some guys from the team, I stopped playing football my senior year in high school. And some guys from the team, it's a true story, they came in like, hey, coach so-and-so wants you to come back out. He was watching the tapes and he didn't realize that was you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, you missed a chance, homie. So I was putting this effort into it and it was going to waste. And I was like, I want to do something that, I was messing around with weights, like middle school, push-ups, sit-ups, normal. My dad had a weeder bench. And this bench was from the 1980s. And it was like this thin, right? I don't know if you've ever seen these ones. It's from the 80s. And the bar was like this thin. And it was like that. Some people had like sand weights with it, but I had just 10-pound plates. So I would put these 10-pound plates on. And once I got up to like 410s on each side, I was like, oh man, this is so much weight. So, but then I finally got serious about it by the time I was about 14, 15. So my sophomore year in high school. And I was like, I'm tired. Like I knew how much dedication I could have to something to improve myself. I was like, I want to do something that the amount that I put in, the amount I get out. And so I started reading the books. I had Arnold's Bible here somewhere. My dad actually had he was Marine Corps, former CIA paramilitary. So I grew up in a pretty military strict household. So we were pretty gung-ho. And so he had a Bill Pearl weightlifting guide. And I remember just looking at those guys' physiques, and they were from the 70s and stuff. And I was just like, this is insane. Like, I want to look like this. And I'll have to look up that Bill Pearl one. That one's really awesome. Actually, I have another. This is my buddy gave me this one. This is an original August 1967 muscular development with Arnold Schwarzenegger on it.
Wow.
So yeah,
that might be worth some money, dude. Hang on to that.
Get
Get that in the sleeve. Don't just have it sitting out there.
Yeah, I know. I need to. That's why I put it in the little folder.
Yeah.
I think
You gotta hide that thing, man.
Yeah. So I had all these books and stuff, and I just you could not get me away for a second. I mean, I was watching Pumping Iron. I remember I got, I think, Jay's DVD. Maybe it was from J to Z or something, came out like 2002 or 2003. And I had got it right when Netflix came out. My aunt got us a membership, a trial. And this was when they were right when they came out and they were shipping DVDs. So I got Jay's DVD in like 2003. And I was watching it, and I just would watch these things over and over and over and over, and just became obsessed. And back then it was probably external motivation. seeing these guys and wondering how I can get like them. But then over time, it becomes intrinsic and you develop a passion for it. And, you don't have to have the hype up videos and stuff, you just develop a love and passion for it with all the knowledge that you gain with it. So probably about 15 is when I started. So it's been a little bit, but yeah, I started training just because I wanted to have a back like Franco, I wanted to have arms like Arnold, and all those guys. And I wanted to pose like Ed Corney. And so, once I think the first Olympia I watched live was 2004. I watched Ronnie, and I think it was either 03 or 04. He was like his craziest. So I'm watching this Olympia as a freshman in high school. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is what I have to look like. It's so far out of reach. Like that was the biggest anyone had ever been on stage. And of course that was the Olympia I watched, but I loved it. And I was obsessed. So that's sort of how I got involved. And then later on, I noticed I wasn't able to put on size as fast because I was sort of an athletic, ectomorphic body type, as they say. I mean, we're all sort of a mix of different red and white muscle fibers, but I would say that I was a little more ectomorphic. And so I noticed I was getting strong really fast. So within a year of going from not weightlifting at all, I weighed about 160 pounds. I was benching 315, like self handoff, everything, weighing 160 pounds. So the strength was always there. And that's why I sort of got into powerlifting, because it came easy. But I will say that in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be the bodybuilder, to do it. So I'm glad I went back on that path eventually.
Cool, man. Okay. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into your childhood and your upbringing at this point, John. So you mentioned your dad being a Marine and a CIA, in the CIA. You mentioned getting into soccer at a young age. Now, outside of the sports, because it sounds like you were very active, very sports centric child. I want to talk a little bit about some other things. School, in terms of academics, was that something that your parents stressed? Was that something that you enjoyed? Was it something that you went to school because we had to? Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so that was a huge part of what my parents believed strongly. They're Roman Catholic, and they believe strongly in the family unit, right? So they're more conservative, and they believe that having a good education was, and a lot of, not necessarily nowadays, I mean, there's so many opportunities and trades and things you can go into to make a lot of good money. But at some point you got to be educated of some sort, so I'll be honest, like I sucked at math. I was never really good at math, but by the time I was in third grade, I was reading like high school level, which was a little weird, because I would say words that didn't necessarily fit my age. So people thought I was just like saying stuff, but yeah, I was good at reading comprehension stuff, but yeah, like I sucked at math. But either way, had a good education coming up, pretty strict. And I would say by high school, I went to an all-guys military Catholic school ran by the Benedictine monks in Richmond, Virginia. So that was fun, and it was great times though. But then after that, I had an okay GPA. I wasn't a scholar, because I was more focused on sports and being a meathead. But I took a year off to help take care of my grandpa, who was sick at the time, and I'm glad I did that because I got to spend a lot of time with him, and so that was cool. And the next year I got accepted into Virginia Military Institute, and which is sort of like West Point of the South, whatever they call it. So the school fought in the Civil War. We still have, like, there's still cannon shells in the side of the barracks from where battles and stuff like that. They were shooting down barracks and whatnot. So a lot of history to it. It's located in Virginia, Lexington, Virginia, nestled in the mountains up there. but that's where I started powerlifting through that, through Monty Sparkman up there. And but yeah, so education was really important. I got a double major. It was economics and business. And they were AACSB accredited business school, which is one of the best business school accreditations in the nation. So I got that degree, got out, went down to Georgia to work for a little bit, came back, went down to the train and worked for a little bit, took some classes. I think I was taking like an econometrics course or something down there in Georgia. And I had to learn how to grind. Nothing was given to me. I was barely making any money. It's personal training. I was working for a guy for a company and still taking extra classes, and finally came home, got my first real good job with a salary and whatnot. And then I was like, man, I hate my life, and decided to go back to school. So then I went and got another degree in computer science with a concentration in cybersecurity. So I went and got that one. And then, you know, continuing with education, I'm applying now for my master's in nutrition science, and hopefully we'll go down the road of being a dietitian and doing that. So
you got some education then, huh?
a little bit. I don't know. I mean, during my first degree, we were ran so ragged. I mean, you know, with the military training, you're, you know, multiple formations, military training, you don't leave campus, right? You don't have cars until you're a senior. You don't have phones when you're a freshman. You know, you're not allowed to talk when you're a freshman while you're going through sort of the rat line hazing process. And you know, you ran ragged. And you know, and then you have to study you have to cram everything in from like 8 to 11 or 10:30, 11, then taps, lights out. And if you have permission, you can study late, right? And then you got to be up. I'd probably get up at 5:30 for morning formation again. Get ready for that, march down to the chow hall, start the day over again. And somehow you have to fit all your classes in, all your military stuff, fit your training in, weightlifting training and stuff. So that was a couple years. I was happy I was able to make Team USA and do all the things I did with that crazy schedule looking back on it. But it allowed me to have even more discipline and dedication, to the point where it's like, well, I've got a million things to do in a day. And I'm like, this is easy, right? I can plan my own day and stuff. So it helps me stay super regulated, and helped me look at life through a different lens. And I'm sure a lot of guys who get out of the military and go that route, and they're like, I have all this freedom, right? It's like life seems so easy, but you can easily go the wrong way with that and get involved in things that can almost become detrimental to you, you know. But yeah.
Now, talk to me a little bit about, since we're kind of at the point of like your career and stuff, what do you do currently? And then what do you, it sounds like you said you're going to go back to get your master's degree, like in nutrition, dietetics. And so what do you kind of want to do with that? So what do you do now? What do you want to do in the future career wise? John, what's your long term?
Yeah, so I moved. I'm a beach bum at heart. So I lived in this, you know, in the country, went to school in the mountains, moved to the Virginia Beach a couple years ago, and absolutely love it. And I've been down here for about 3 years. I did IT for Chesapeake Regional Hospital. I did IT work for them, which was very interesting. I remember, I won't say too much, all the HIPAA stuff. I won't say names, but there were some interesting times there where, you know, you're trained for IT, right? Running lines, programs, code, the whole nine. And like I'd go into a room to fix something, and you know, a guy who's working DoD, Department of Defense, he's doing training. He's a civilian now, but he's doing training for I think some SEALs. Because you know, we have a lot of Navy SEALs trained down here, Virginia Beach, stuff like that, located down here. So we were talking, you know, he obviously sees my size and shape and stuff. And so, you know, he's talking weightlifting and whatnot. And he's showing me his hand-to-hand combat stuff. And then I was like, well, man, I was like, you know, why are you in here? And he's in the hospital bed. And he's like, oh man, I got tuberculosis. And I'm like, yo, why am I in this room right now? And there were other times where I would say the hardest thing was during COVID, I was working in the hospital doing IT, and whatever side people want to believe, I didn't agree with the vaccines and stuff. I didn't. But everyone's up to their own opinion, and I don't judge people for that. But the one thing that really hurt me, and I didn't think, I was cool with all the masks, all the regulations. I didn't care. I wasn't gonna make a big deal about it. But when you saw people's family and the people would be sick in the ICU and they were passing away, and they didn't let family members say goodbye because of this COVID, right? And so that was probably something that I probably wasn't ready for mentally, but it was hard. We lost a lot of nurses because of it too. It was hard for people to see their loved ones go when they just want to say goodbye, and they're not allowed to, right? They were only allowed to have like one person at the hospital at a time. So that was tough. But that same year I did a show, won my overall, went to USA's, didn't do well. My body was just worn out. I had been doing a 9-month prep at that point, and it was just strung out, worn out. This wasn't a good showing. So no worries, you live and you learn. That was my first national show. And so I was like, all right, I have to really focus if I want to do this right. And I left and I started coaching. So I have powerlifting clients, bodybuilding clients, do some nutrition for some of them. I do a little bit of in-person training here, obviously not a ton the last like 2 weeks of prep. But that's more of the focus I'm doing now. So I still love IT. I mess with stuff all the time, but I'm sure we all did at some point with MySpace and doing HTML code and whatnot, even if people don't realize it. But yeah, so right now I'm more along the coaching route. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so then with the coaching, obviously combining that with the bodybuilding in the hopes of being an IFBB pro,
Mm-hmm.
is that kind of like the long term? You want to kind of be like a full-time coach and combine that with being a pro bodybuilder and kind of go that route? Is that kind of what you have for a vision for yourself in the future?
I would say, depending on how, we can plan for the future, but we don't know, right? We can prepare, but we don't know how the future is going to go. So I have my LLC, I have my company right now, Valiant Action Training. My end goal would be either to continue doing that, especially as turn pro and hopefully have a few years successful in the pro league. And my goal is to get out by 40 and just to be, to retire from bodybuilding and focus on family and life and other things. Some of us are, especially the younger guys, are so caught up in this is the only thing that matters. And yeah, it's good to have that mindset. It's good to be hyper focused, but there's a lot of things in life that we only get one life, and you only get so many phone calls with your mom. You only get so many phone calls with your dad. And if you're being a jerk, during prep and you hang up that phone, I guarantee you when they're gone, you're going to wish you had picked it up. So, it's good to be hyper-focused, but there's also a maturity aspect of when you get to a certain age, you're like, okay, let's figure out what else is there in life. And I feel that most guys and pros that have long careers that are successful realize that, and they're able to balance real life. You'll see like Dexter with his huge family at shows. Ronnie has 9 kids. Kevin Levrone has a kid, and a lot of Victor Martinez has a great family, and like a lot of these guys have families and they're able to balance. But you learn that once you get to a certain age, and certain life experiences. But yeah, so I would say either stick with the coaching and or work for a company and or a hospital as a dietitian. So that way I can still have my own people on the side, but also have a full-time guaranteed job where I'm a dietitian for, let's say a hospital or whatnot.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Love that. Okay, let's take a step back. Let's get into kind of the powerlifting talk, and then let's dive fully into the bodybuilding talk. So,
Okay.
When did you first compete in your first powerlifting competition? And just walk us through. I know you said you did it for 10 years, so there's a lot of highlights. But when did you do your first powerlifting competition? And talk about maybe just some of the takeaways from your powerlifting experience?
It might have only been 8 years that I was competitive. But I was probably powerlifting longer than that, like you said. But 2009, I remember walking over. I was at VMI. They had a club sports banquet. I walked over. We had 30 minutes to go check out clubs before we got yelled at and as freshmen, and back to the push-up line, and guys in your face yelling. So like 30 minutes, like, let me go run around, try to see where's weightlifting at. I was like, I know I'm gonna get small the next like 8 months of like not eating food and ruck marches and force this and force that. I found the powerlifting club and I was like, hey, and they're like, yo, these guys are massive. And I'm like, yeah, I did a little bit of bodybuilding. And they're like, we don't do that shit here. And I was like, yo, what? And so I'm shocked, right? Because I don't really know powerlifting. I'd watched Mariusz Pudzianowski, World's Strongest Man. They looked at me and they're like, yeah, we squat. And I was like, okay, sign me up. Signed up. I was the first rat, which is when you're going through the hazing, they call you rats. Was the first rat to qualify during like the hazing process for collegiate nationals in the history of that school. So I knew I was doing well with it. I had earned the respect of, you're not friends with freshmen when you're going through the military academies. You're not friends with the freshmen, fourth classmen. But I earned the respect of everyone on the team. So it was like having a family while the world hated you at the school, so while everyone's in your face screaming at you, trying to break you down mentally, I had my escape. And so I did well with that. I got injured my second year pretty bad with my back. And I still didn't really understand training that well. I knew I was getting strong really fast. And I think I deadlifted 2 or 3 days in a row without realizing it, because like summer break had started and stuff, and I was still up there working. And so I pulled my back really bad, and I couldn't sit down for like 3 months without physical therapy. Luckily, it wasn't anything bad or anything that it changed the way the muscular looked, but I had definitely strained something, maybe an insertion going into my spine, and that was rough. That was really rough. And so going into my junior year, no one knew who I was nationally. I was a nobody, right? So next thing you know, my squat had gone up in about a year and a half. My squat had gone up about 350 pounds. My bench had gone up about 150 pounds. My deadlift had gone up a little less, maybe like 120 pounds. So people knew who I was. So I went to collegiates. I got fourth. I should have gotten higher, but I messed up on a lift. And then the next month I went to junior nationals and I won. I got a place on Team USA, went to Team USA, medaled. And so then I was pretty well known. Got a powerlifting sponsor, the whole nine. Started doing well that. And then when I got out of school, continued doing it, and then went the route of non-tested. And that's when I was going against guys like Dan Green. Larry he was in it at the time. I mean, he was just coming up. But a lot of those guys, and yeah, the Little Bridges too. They were always at the meets. It was always awesome to watch them. I remember I was about maybe 12 feet away when Andrei Milanichev did the first raw 1,000-pound squat. I think it was like 10:14. I was like 12 feet away, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. But yeah, once I got to like 2016, I won the LA Fit Expo and then went out to set the all-time world record at 242, and I did. And I probably only had the record. The record had been standing for a couple of years, and I broke it. Then, of course, when you break something, everyone knows it's possible. So then I think like Larry or someone took it like 3 months later, and I was like, all right, let me try to get it back. So by the spring of 2017, I was at my all-time strongest. I mean, 700-pound squats were like warming up, with just the belt on. And so I was at my all-time strongest. I was benching closer to 550. I was still in the 230s, right? 239, 240. And getting closer to a 400 kilo pull, so 881. So I was going to smoke the record. And I remember this like yesterday. I was warming up backstage or back in the warm-up room, and I squatted 700 pounds. Whoa. Felt my hamstring just zipper all the way down. And I was like, oh, 5 months of training, 6 months of training, just gone to waste. I tried to do a deadlift, couldn't do it. Luckily, once again, all the injuries that I had were just sort of intramuscular. None of them were tendons or ligaments, never had to have a surgery or anything. Nothing ever changed the shape of my muscle, which ended up being really good. But yeah, that's sort of how I finished out my powerlifting. I was like, going into bodybuilding, I was probably sitting on there's a few months after that now, probably about 3 months after, sitting on my chair. I get up and I'm like, man, I don't think I can walk around. Like my hips hurt me so bad. My IT bands are tight. Everything's just acting up. I go to Kroger, I go grocery shopping, I think to myself, and I call my best bud, Duranda Mason. I go, hey man, I think I'm going to do the Cutler. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, I think I'm going to do the Cutler, the local bodybuilding show in Richmond, Virginia. And I was like, I'm like 8 weeks out or 9 weeks out. I was like, I'm going to do it. And he was like, his thing to me is he's my blood brother. He's brother for life. And he was like, he's never going to say no because he knows I'm a lunatic, but he's going to say, we're going to have to work. You have to do some work. That's his way of saying, yeah, it's going to be hard. But I did 8 weeks with Curtis Bryant. And I was able to win my class and stuff and just missed the overall. And so I was like, all right, maybe I should do this thing, because I was realistic. If I was going to go in there and I saw the photos afterwards and I looked like, a hot mess, I was going to go back to powerlifting. But I was like, oh, I got some shape. I was like, okay, let me try to stick this thing out, see what I can do.
Cool, man. Okay. Now, before we transition fully into bodybuilding, what are some takeaways for you personally in terms of powerlifting? Like in regards to, did it make your mindset stronger, goal setting? I mean, just some life lessons. Like, talk about some of that before we get into bodybuilding.
There's two things that I can say that powerlifting at the highest levels taught me. Number one, I know my strength. I am not questioning when I go into the gym and I'm training bodybuilding. I don't question, maybe I can do this, maybe I can't do this. I know, proven on records, on paper, what I'm capable of. So when I see bodybuilders get hurt, when I see bodybuilders deadlifting maximum attempts and doing this and that, I just shake my head. Because at the end of the day, yes, you may be okay, but you are running a serious risk of ending your career. Whether it's an insanely heavy squat, an insanely heavy bench, injuries happen. And a lot of guys push the limit of the intensity of the weight itself because they don't know they don't know the max of them for them. They don't know what they can really achieve. So they try to feel out like, well, I did 5 plates on bench. Maybe I can do 5 1/4. I've already been there and done that. I know what I can achieve for a 1 rep max, for a 2 rep max, for 3 rep max. So my mindset is like, okay, well, I know I'm good with 405. Let me hit those controlled 405 with 8. Well, man, 405 by 8 is getting really easy. Let me slow it down a little bit. Let me take a little more control. So I don't push the intensity of the weight. I mean, I'm a week out, or I was a week and a half out, and I'm doing like 7, 8 plates on hack squat. No bands, by the way. Don't use those bands. But, so I'm still strong, but I'm not going to push the intensity of the movement to the point of no return because I've been there. I know what it takes. I know what it's like to walk out 800 pounds, 850. I've done, training squats and stuff with 930 pounds. I know what it feels like. There's no reason to do that, right? Not to build your physique. So can it help every now and then? For sure. Central nervous system training, for sure. But it's not going to get you the physique you want. Unfortunately, with this sport, genetics are genetics. Muscle bellies are muscle bellies. You're not going to change the shape of them, right? You're not, right? I don't agree with just training light all the time. I don't agree with that. I think you have to train heavy. You have to train hard, but there's a smart way to do it, and the intensity level. And I know you know what I'm saying. Otherwise, you're running an unnecessary risk of hurting yourself, And yeah, your bodybuilding might be over, but let's say you tear a pec. Okay, let's say they heal the pec or they can't heal it or whatever it is. When the pec's not able to move as much, you're not able to get that 100% activation from the pec. What's going to take over? Your anterior delt, other things. That's going to cause shoulder issues, shoulder impingement later on in life. So yeah, you might mess up your bodybuilding career, but you might mess up other stuff later on in life. So that's what I would say. Number one, the best thing about powerlifting. Number two, I would say powerlifting gets you a dense physique. Through my back, when I hit like a rear lat spread or my hamstrings and things like that, you know, people sometimes comment on them. Those are from the heavy pulls. Those are from those 850, 1,000-pound rack pulls I was doing. The density of like a chest, things like some shoulders. My shoulders are wide, they're developed, and a lot of overhead pressing, a lot of bench pressing, a lot of pressing. And I think that to master the big three, bench, squat, deadlift, is very important for especially beginner lifters. You will gain more muscle tissue because you're not going to be focused on doing, an isolation movement with a very small muscle belly, right? We've got to develop that muscle belly first before we can, so you can't shape something that doesn't have the mass there yet. So yeah, those are probably the top two things.
Okay. Excellent, man. Those are great takeaways. Now, transitioning into bodybuilding, you tear your hamstring. You're like, in 8 weeks, I'm going to do this competition. You win your class.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next? I think you said this is 2016, 2017.
This was 27. Yeah, 2017, almost going into 2018. And I knew I'm the type of guy that like doesn't want to rush things. I enjoy training. I enjoy going to the gym. So I knew I had to take a couple of years off. So I took all of 2018, all of 2019, because I moved in 2019 to the beach. And then 2020, COVID happened. So I was going to compete, but COVID happened. So as soon as 2021 comes around in March, I do my first show, technically my second show ever. And I won overall. And I was like, all right, cool. I should have called it after that. But, we got to film with Cutler and we got to do a couple of cool things. And it was great experiences and met a lot of great people. And so it was sort of hard to pull the plug. But yeah, that 9-month prep going from that year was rough, dude. And I learned that. And it wasn't that, how do I say it? It wasn't that it was impossible, but there comes a certain point where your body stops responding. And no matter what you do, you won't lose that little last bit of fat. And I got strung out. And it wasn't a good look, but we nailed it this time, thankfully. And because that was summer 2021. So this is a year and a half after that. We took almost a year and a half off season and did guest posing here and there and stayed in shape. And I was able to do some stuff for GNC and film some commercials for them and stuff. So it kept me in shape, where I didn't get too out of shape. Monitored my blood glucose, made sure my insulin sensitivity levels were good. So I'm actually absorbing nutrients. And yeah, so very happy the way this prep has gone. The diet was actually a little bit harder than the ones before, but it felt so much easier because I was so fresh.
So 2021, that second show that you're referring to is what you mentioned earlier, the USA's, right? Your first national competition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the last time you competed. Now, coaching, do you coach yourself? Do you have a coach? Talk about that, John.
So I work with Justin Harris, Tripona Nutrition. He turned like Luke Sando pro. He's been with a good friend of Fuad's. I enjoy learning a lot. Everything from, I got my echocardiogram done this past year, where they're literally scanning your heart and you're visually seeing it, seeing the valve, seeing the opening contraction, seeing how large the space is with your left atrium, if there's any muscularity, if there's hypertrophy of your left atrium, which is, guys, be careful of that. Make sure you go get your check. And they were like, yo, you're 100%. You're like, looks natural. Like, go thank your parents. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'm excited. I call up Justin and I'm like, hey man, I'm telling him the millimeter measurements of my heart walls and this and that. And he's labeling off, everything to know about cardiac health with your heart, the measurements and this and that. I'm like, how do you know this? Justin is one of the most intelligent people I've ever had a close friendship with, which I really enjoy because, there's ways to get guys in shape. There's different ways. And some people regurgitate what other guys do and follow this, follow that, or read this and read that. When you're able to understand the science behind it, understand the science of why behind it, and explain it at like a third grade level, then you truly understand what's happening, right? And so Justin's seminars, the way that he's able to communicate with people, I put a seminar on down here in Virginia Beach with Justin, and we brought down Joe Seaman from Canada, and he's a pro up there. And so we brought him down, and we had an hour and a half seminar, and we were going to do an hour of questions. We had 2 hours of questions because people just love learning from Justin. So he's a great coach. I'm really excited to try to help put him on the map a little bit more. Usually coaches have an athlete that sort of gets them known, and I'm hoping to do that for Justin. So hopefully this show we can turn pro and start competing on the pro stage and get Justin's a very, very humble guy, very quiet guy. Doesn't necessarily like the spotlight, which is totally cool. I love that. But it's funny because I'll be watching. I'm sort of the same way. Definitely not as smart as him, but when I'm doing prep and I'm doing cardio, I'd say the last week, sometimes guys watch bodybuilding videos or this and that, and I've done that for sure. But this past week, all I've been trying to learn about is the difference between nuclear fusion and nuclear fission. That's been what I've wanted to learn about this week. And so I'm like on my treadmill learning about this stuff. And so that's why me and Justin probably get along so well. But he's a great guy, a great coach, and hopefully I can get him on a little more well-known after the Arnold. But we had a plan to do the Arnold, and they canceled it, as everyone knows, and then they put it back on. And I was like, well, I mean, it's most likely probably going to be a small show. But I was like, look, at the end of the day, as long as we bring a pro physique and we stand on the stage and we earn what we earn, then it doesn't matter how many people show up. So we've been able to, we had to push a little bit, but him and I talk back and forth and we make adjustments. And I think we really nailed it this time and didn't have to push any fat burners hard or any crazy stuff like that. And the most cardio I was doing was 30, maybe 40 minutes at one point, low intensity, steady state. So nothing crazy, nothing out of the blue. I just think the body responded better this time.
Cool, man. Justin's actually been on the podcast. He is a super cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in regards to this prep, then before you kind of got into the prep, so this year and a half that you took off in between your competitions, what were the focuses in terms of body parts that you were trying to bring up specifically, John?
I would say number one, arms. Kind of like my grandpa was a Golden Glove boxer. My brother was a collegiate boxer. I'm obsessed. Obviously, we love sports, but I'm obsessed with boxing. I love the sweet science. I like MMA as well. I'm a big fan of a lot of pride fights and things from back then. But I have a long reach, which is really good in boxing and really good in mixed martial arts. But it's not the greatest in bodybuilding. And which is weird how I could bench so much. I don't know why. But yeah, so I had to spend a lot of time focused on that. I didn't even train shoulders for about 8 months during the off season. Just didn't touch them. And number one, they just grow so fast. And number two, I had to catch my arms up. So we caught the arms up and then, focused on a lot of hamstrings and quad sweep. And we were able to develop some quad sweep and really bring out the hamstrings this time. So, I think those are probably the main things. Oh, and also lower lat. I always had the spinal erectors and things like that from deadlifting, but that lower lat was a little bit lacking. Chris Cormier showed me some things to really focus on that, and I think we did well with it.
Okay, awesome, man. So how many weeks out did you start this prep then for the Arnold Amateur?
I started cleaning everything up in November, but I didn't really start, and then we stopped prep right in December because we assumed that show was off, and then we picked it back up almost end of December, almost January. So it was about all focused together, like without the couple week break or whatever, and it's probably a solid 10 weeks, right? It's probably, which is short for a lot of people, but sometimes if I do too long of a prep, I get stringy. So we were able to start seeing some glutes and stuff about 2 weeks out. So we just nailed it. So now we're sort of coasting in, and this we're within 7 days now. So it's just sort of holding things together and then just making sure that we feed and pull some water and fill out the best we can and be good to go.
Okay. When are you going to head to Columbus then?
Monday morning. Yeah. So we'll compete Thursday. I'll be there Monday. Should get in there before lunch, and then, obviously grocery shop the whole nine. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, the loading up process, and probably start Monday too, a little bit loading up process, and then pulling water, getting the tan, and they just sent us our tan times and stuff yesterday, and so I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, you should be, man. Now in terms of like the diet side of things, any refeeds or any cheat meals like that in terms of scheduled, or has it all just been straightforward, clean the entire time?
No, we've here's what Justin allows for cheat meals. Usually once a week during the high day. However, I haven't really done a cheat meal. I just don't with Justin's, I just don't crave. And I'm sure the longer, a lot of guys are in this sport, they can say the same thing. Like, you just don't crave after a while. Probably the first couple shows you do, you're craving, and you just get used to eating healthy. But the craziest thing I would do is on my high day, I would go, Justin would say, hey, go get a cheat meal. I would go and get a big breakfast, French toast, eggs, potatoes, a couple pieces of bacon, maybe some flank steak, coffee, a biscuit. Maybe my cheat part was like the pancakes. They have some strawberries on them and stuff, but that's probably the craziest it went. And you just find that, not that it would affect me negatively, but I think that with the amount of let's say you eat a cheese pizza and the amount of lactose and other fats that you'd have to digest, dude, you're always bloated like the next day. You always feel sort of like trash the next day, especially when you've been eating consistently very clean and you throw that in, your insulin just goes absolutely crazy. Your pancreas goes crazy, and you sort of feel like garbage the next day. So I cut that out this time, this prep, and seemed to work pretty good.
Okay, excellent. Now, do you guys have any plans after this show in terms of competing, whether you get your pro card or not, or are you just fully focused on this competition?
Fully focused on this one. If with God's graces and hopefully we do well, and let's say we do earn a pro card, most likely going to take the rest of the year off. And by that, I mean size. Just add another good amount of size. Guys say they want to add 10 pounds, this and that. You don't really know. Like some guys, I've noticed some guys can blow up in the off season and get 40, 50 pounds over their weight. And then they have to cut it all off. And it's like, well, this is the best I've looked at this. It's like, well, it's hard to tell because, the amount of fluid in the cells that they retain, everyone is a little bit different. So I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to gain a certain amount of weight, this and that. Just the goal is to get bigger, goal is to put on more size. And then, if we do get the pro card, then use the automatic invitation to do the Arnold Pro next year. and then, sort of start the pro career.
Excellent, dude. Okay. Now, you said you kind of want to be done competing in bodybuilding by the time you're 40. So before that age occurs, what's kind of like your goal as a competitive bodybuilder? What would you like to accomplish, John?
I don't know what the future holds. I know that every show I do, I'll be 100%, giving it 100%, giving it my all. I would like personally to at least win a show, step on the Arnold stage once and step on the Olympia stage once. Could I end up stepping on those stages multiple times and doing well? Sure, for sure, maybe. Could happen. I'm not a huge believer in if I say it enough, it's going to happen, right? I have to speak it out, put it out there in the atmosphere for it to happen. Some guys believe that. I don't. I think that if you just bust your butt and you do everything you're supposed to do, the stars will line up. And when it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. There's enough pro cards for everyone to go around. Whenever you're supposed to get your pro cards, whenever you're supposed to get your pro card. It happens when it happens, when you earn it. When you're ready to win a show, you're going to win your show as a pro. And, when you're ready for the Olympia stage, you'll be on the Olympia stage. And you shouldn't change the amount of dedication and intensity you have towards your passion or sport based upon the outward expression of what you're trying to say. So it's like, if no one knows I'm going to do this thing, is that going to affect? Do I have to have, with the social media age, do I have to have all these people liking and talking about me? Is that going to change how much intensity and dedication I put towards this? Not at all. So, like I said, who knows what the future holds, but at least win a show, a pro show. Arnold stage once, Olympia stage once. Whatever else on top of that is a blessing, and I'll be cool with it.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Who do you like going into the Arnold in terms of open men's bodybuilding next weekend?
Okay. Oof. Everyone's been talking about this. No one's going to know until they step on stage, of course, which is the exciting part of it. But, Nick Walker's a favorite. He's already won it. So obviously even the judges are going to look at him. Their eyes going to go to him first. He's already won it recently. So I'm very interested to see how Andrew Jack looks. He's been working with Chris Psycho Lewis, and they've been keeping it under wraps, which I like a lot. I love that. Man, if he can bring a tighter package and a fuller package, there may be some upsets. And I think Samson Dowda, amazing physique. If he can really tighten things up, I don't know if he's working with Milos, might be, I don't know. But man, Samson Dowda, Andrew Jack, I think those two are the dark horses that they could win it. I think Rami's coming back. I'm buddies with Trigili, and so we text back and forth sometimes, and Rami looks good. I think, and even Nick put a video out about this, I think he's going to need a little more time with the stem cell treatment to get the growth back with the muscle belly. For instance, like with his triceps, with his arms. But I think that Rami's going to shock some people and do better than he did at the Olympia. I think he might be like a top 4, top 3 even. But yeah, I think that if Derek Lunsford was doing it, I'm honestly pretty sure he would have won. But yeah.
What do you think about Sean Clarita? You think he could
oh man,
get in the top 3 at least?
I think honestly top 4. Samson's too big. Andrew Jack, they're too put together, right? Like, you got to remember when Sean won that pro show, he beat some guys at the end of the season, and like a Regan, who even said like he wasn't at his best, and he's put on so much more size now to fill out his frame. Sean's filled out his frame. Those other guys haven't really filled out the frame. Sergio went to the Middle East, and he's looking crazy, filling out his frame. So, going against a guy like an Andrew Jack, who, how tall is, I'm almost 5'11". Andrew's what, like 6'2", 6'3"?
I think he's over, I think maybe 6'1", 6'2", yeah.
6'1", yeah. So he's a taller guy. dude, that's hard. That's hard to go against a guy who's that pretty shape and put together. To go against a mass monster, okay, Lee Priest beat a lot of people that way. The shape, the structure, right? But man, Andrew Jack is a dark horse. I think Sean can do really well. I think he's going to be top 4. I don't see him winning this one though. I just don't see it happening.
Okay. Cool,
Nothing
man.
against him. It's just, yeah, those guys are monsters.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great competition for sure. Outside of the coaching and the bodybuilding and kind of the iron side of things, what do you like to do, John, for fun? You said you're kind of a beach bum, I think you said. So
Yeah,
what do you like to do for fun outside the bodybuilding world?
oh man, during prep, nothing. Just be as boring as possible. I would say I my girlfriend is from Bosnia. And she's Muslim, and so we're really big on family. Really big on family. We're not home. I mean, we're homebodies, right? So we redid our backyard last year, and we've got all the furniture out there and the fire, the fire pits, all the glass stones and stuff. So it's really nice. And we'll have 1 or 2 friends over, or just ourselves, just go out there and sit out there in the summer and go to the beach during the day. And we like to try new restaurants. So they'll be like, all right, it's my high day. It's our Saturday once a week. Let's go try a new restaurant in the summer. Like we'll go try a new restaurant. We love going to movies, like just normal things. I think, like I said, the goals after 40. I used to love skateboarding. I was trying to get sponsored for a while. I want to get back into surfing. I used to snowboard a lot. I actually have new boots and new bindings on my snowboard that I had to stop using because I didn't want to blow my knees out. I had an accident. I was going down one night, and I don't know if anyone else here snowboards, but when it gets sundown, the course gets icy, right? And so they don't allow you on like the trick park course. Well, I went anyway, and I went boom off a jump, and then I slid, right? So I sort of caught an edge, and I landed right on my rib cage on this like hardened ice jump. And I thought I broke everything. I thought I was gonna have to go to they're gonna have to carry me down the mountain. But no, it was good. But yeah, probably get back into surfing, do a little jogging, just explore, travel a little bit. I'm big into nature. I'm not like a hippie out there smoking weed all the time and stuff, but doing mushrooms. But definitely I just love nature. I love animals. Yeah, I had like 4 pugs at one point, Belgian Tervuurens, German Shepherds, or the Black Labs. We had horses growing up, so we would have to go throw hay for the horses. And I don't like riding horses. My dad does. He fell off one a couple months ago, which I told him, like, hey man, you're getting a little older, please stop with that. So hopefully I think he's learned his lesson. But yeah, it's a little scary riding horses because you don't have control of it. But yeah, not huge into cars. I got a pretty nice car, but not huge into cars or anything. But yeah, more just like outside stuff, just enjoying family, just enjoying life, sort of.
Yeah. Are you a book reader?
Yeah, I stopped for a while. And I started reading more, I would say, like medical journals and things along that nature, because that's what's taken my my interest, trying to go down the road of being a dietitian, things like that, and learning more for coaching aspects. So hormone regulation, nutrient, just tons of journals and studies about everything. And I'll be like, what, how does this affect this? I bet there's a journal on it. And there's so many libraries and things that you can actually research these journals and find them and just read abstracts, which, if you guys don't know, this is like a quick little summary of the study and whatnot. So you can learn. So we have Google, everything's at our fingertips. Like, I love learning. I used to read an insane amount. Just haven't had a lot of time for that recently, but hopefully that starts back soon.
Okay. You got a favorite all-time book, or a book that kind of maybe spoke to you at some point in your
Oh
younger
my gosh,
years?
man. Oh man, thinking back. there were so many. This is going to sound weird because I think everyone read this book at one point. Where the Red Fern Grows. For some reason, the ending of that book just affected me in a weird way that I lost a family member when I was young due to a murder-suicide. And reading that book around that time affected me differently. And losing a loved one or someone you cared about, like, it was by an accident. So that I would say that one. There's so many more that I do want to read. Like my girlfriend, she reads a lot of Jay Shetty books, positivity and all that stuff. So she loves reading as well. But yeah, I'll have to, you make me feel bad, man. I gotta get some more reading material and go catch up on some literature.
No, that's okay. I thought maybe you sounded kind of like you were maybe a bookworm. So that's why I just asked.
Not right now.
Well, you're reading, but it's a different type of reading, right?
Yeah.
All right, John, I think we'll end it right there, man. I think we covered a lot of ground with your story and kind of obviously powerlifting and bodybuilding. So before I do a quick outro and let you go, if you have any final thoughts, any final words for us, any shout outs, give us your Instagram. I'm going to turn it over to you. Then I'll do a quick outro and I'll let you go. So whatever you got for us in closing.
Oh man, just big thankful to everyone who supported me. Really looking forward to the Arnold competing, doing well, hopefully getting a pro card. And eventually, if I get a pro card, competing on the pro stage and developing a lot of friendships and relationships with some of the guys, and just enjoying the process, man. We only live once, so just enjoying everything about it and making the most of it. So
yeah, give us your Instagram.
It's just my name with my middle initial, so it's John.C.Rivas, Rivas. So John Rivas is my name, and yeah, so that should be it.
Okay. Now, in terms of like the coaching and stuff like that, if somebody wants to connect with you to possibly, have you coach them, is Instagram the best way to reach out, or do you have a website? Where can people connect with you with that?
Instagram is going to be the best because my email for my business email and everything are just directly on there. So you just got to click email and then it'll be good.
Okay. Cool. All right, John, I'm going to do a quick outro, then I'll let you go, but thank you so much for coming on. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. If you guys have not done so already, make sure you please hit that subscribe button on YouTube in regards to Behind the Muscle podcast. And then also please take this episode with John, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag John, tag Behind the Muscle podcast so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.